Well, more Americans are falling behind on their car payments. It's a warning sign that financial stress is growing for working families. Delinquencies on subprime auto loans are near record highs, even as the broader economy looks strong. Gustavo Flores-Macías, Dean of the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, is here to help us understand what this all means. Gustavo, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
All right, so Gustavo, can you kind of let us understand here, how pronounced is this issue of missing car payments and its potential effects on the economy?
Absolutely. Right now, it's not a major concern, but we're definitely seeing signs of weakening of the economy in the car sector, which can be an early indicator of a broader behavior in the economy. Is something that economists are definitely paying attention to. What we're seeing is the combination of prices going up. People are having to pay more for groceries, for cars, for fuel, etc. But we also then have a softening on the labor market. So some people are finding it harder and harder to meet their car payments.
So what we have, if I'm hearing this correctly, is some people are losing their jobs and can't make their payments, and with the prices of everyday items, they are making their payments late because they're paying so much for other things like groceries in the supermarket.
That's correct. Some people, if people had incurred debt from purchasing a car, and this is true, by the way, we're seeing some signs in home mortgages, for instance. There are some signs that this behavior is permeating in other sectors, not just autos. But let's say that someone bought a car and had a job at the time and is now perhaps lost the job or is finding it harder to pay because of other rising expenses in the groceries, fuel, etc. Those folks are now having to tap into savings if they can, but many people don't have that luxury. Many people are really struggling and falling behind in their payments. Again, the prices, I think in part we're seeing some of the effects of tariffs that are now starting to materialize after a lag. But the softening of economic activity is especially affecting some sectors. So, some underrepresented groups are finding it harder to find another job if they lose the one they currently have.
And that is definitely one of the signs many look out for. What demographic is being affected the most here? This research found that low-income families are affected, but it also found that higher credit scores, people with higher credit scores also show strain here. What does that tell you?
Yeah, I think, for the most part, it's people in the lower echelons, the folks that are struggling the most. And, it's true that we see at the luxury end a little bit of this as well, in the luxury market, the luxury part of the market. But for the most part, this is something that we're seeing, again, not only in the auto sector, but more consistently across the economy for the lower echelons of the income distribution.
Gustavo, what should people do as we're looking at these clues to what is ahead here? People paying more for these groceries and some people losing their jobs. What should people know and how should they prepare themselves?
Yeah. I think this can be disconcerting because, we see macroeconomic figures showing that the economy keeps going and GDP keeps growing and the stock market is doing well. But again, for these sectors, it's not like they're benefiting necessarily from the stock market, and it can be really disheartening to find themselves in delinquency of debt. I think it's a time that to be conservative in terms of expenditures, if one can sort of figure out what is strictly necessary. I know that this is difficult for many because some people are really living paycheck to paycheck. Right. But to the extent that one can, to try to be conservative in those expenditures and looking really for sort of a planning before entering one of these transactions of the purchase of a vehicle, just making sure that there's a bit of a cushion in case one loses one's job.
At the very least, become aware of what you're spending and, and start from there. Gustavo Flores-Macías, Dean of the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, thank you for joining us this morning and providing your insight.
My pleasure. Thanks again.